Welcome to the adventures of self. Conversations with ordinary and extraordinary people as they explore what it means to be self-expressed. Come on in. Join the adventure.
Welcome to the adventures of self, Angel Ribo.
Yes, that's me. Thank you, Taylor.
I was thinking...
Absolutely. Yeah, here we are. So thank you very much for having me today, Taylor. And obviously, thank you very much to everybody who's listening to us today.
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking at first, like, did I get the name right? Is this the wrong day? Is this the wrong guest?
No. It was the right name, but everybody pronounces it differently, and it's good. No. When we live in boxes. We live in boxes, and then we get comfortable with specific ways that people do things around us. And when sometimes you get like comfortable with, because you expect someone to say more things, but when they don't, then you feel uncomfortable. It's like I have a program on Thursdays live. We have hundreds of people, thank God, live tuning in with us. It's called The Voice of Your Heart. Voice of Your Heart. And we teach people how to. This is pretty outside what I typically do. Okay, so this is something I do because I really love it. And she's a channeler, so she channel entities from other dimensions. And I'm just a human being that happened to be with her at the same time. Okay, so we teach people how to listen and speak from their hearts. And actually, this upcoming Thursday, and it's March 2021, by the way, we are talking about silence. We're talking about the importance of silence and how to connect with your own self and your heart through silence. And when you finish, that's why I'm talking about this, because when you finish mentioning my name, I wasn't thinking about the way you pronounced it. I was thinking of maybe he's going to say something else. But again, everything always plays out, magically. And there's no good or wrong. There's always good. So I was just waiting for something else to come, but it didn't come, so it was good. Yeah. But obviously, when you are airing something, silence is a different thing, because you don't want anybody to tune into your podcast and suddenly there's silence. What's going on?
Well, it's funny. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know that we're going to have a lot to talk about. So, and I think it's really interesting to start with that concept of silence, because I really appreciate silence, and it's as you say, it's a bit challenging to have a podcast about silence. Like, we can talk about silence, and we could probably have a moment or so of silence. But if you had a whole podcast of silence, I'm not sure anyone would necessarily, perhaps I'm wrong, would necessarily tune in. And the thing that I've learned to appreciate about silence, I used to, like when I was younger, I always listened to music. If I were studying, if I were cooking, probably even if I were meditating, I was listening to some type of music. Now I might say, oh, it's classical music, or it's ambient music. It doesn't have any words. And I found at some point that I was, focused on some aspect of the music, which can be a beautiful thing. But it did take me away from something that is much deeper and also much more challenging, which is to sit with silence, to actually sit with oneself. We have so much in our lives right now that we want to distract from who we are, the truth of who we are. So I love that we've kind of started with this concept of silence.
And it's an unconscious bias, actually, because very, very, very often have you ever seen one of those posts online that someone takes a picture of a newspaper like from 100 years ago, and you start reading it, and the reflection that they make, the people that post this, they say, hey, look at what I'm reading. It's 100 years old. It's from a newspaper. And guess what? It could apply to today. It could be today that the exact same thing could be told about what's going on in the world today. So, yeah, I mean, it's March 2021. Obviously, everybody who's listening to this knows what has happened in the world, in the entire planet for the last 12 months, right? But probably if we change perspective a little bit, if we lived in another time, right? Probably we would think the same way or similarly. For instance, I don't know about you. I'm from Spain, so my parents were born in 1940. They're still alive in Spain. This is 1 year right after the civil war in Spain ended. So we didn't have, we didn't participate. Spain didn't participate in, World War II or World War I, but we had this civil war. So depending on when you were born, right, your concept of turmoil, your concept of big disruption would be relative, but it could be applied to many different points in time, right? So yeah, again, it's going back to the idea of we tend to put everything in boxes to feel comfortable.
Certainly to have a sense of trying to make meaning of something. There's something quite important about trying to make meaning of something, as if we have a meaning, if we have a definition, then we understand it. Now, I think one of the things you're alluding to, which is, or at least the way I'm taking it, is just because you put something in a box, a definition, doesn't mean that is what it is, because you can discover new information or come to a new understanding and all sorts of things, and all of a sudden that box is turned completely on its head and you realize, oh, what I thought was real is actually not real at all, and my understanding has completely changed. Well,
or as you know, I mean, real is so relative, right? I mean, because both you and I, we could be looking at the same object and we could be seeing and feeling different things, right? So everything is relative. So then how do you live in a world in which you try to live with so many people, knowing that everybody has a different perspective of the same, in theory, the same reality, right? But yeah, it's fascinating how we tend to consider us, I mean, we're definitely unique, right? I mean, we, as human beings, we are unique. I mean, we're just defining what this uniqueness means, but also in the moment in history that we are living, we tend to think it's unique, but maybe it's similar in terms of emotions to what ourselves or even our ancestors. Obviously for me, I'm Gen X, so I never lived this before. I never ever lived in a moment like this before, in which all those things were happening around, or in which my emotions were the same emotions that are right now. So I cannot refer to this. I don't, and that's why uncertainty generates so much fear, because you don't know what to do with it, right? I mean, it's just, you don't know.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. In fact, I was talking to some friends over the weekend about this kind of unique moment, although probably every moment is unique. And you and I are from a similar generation. And yeah, we didn't have any great wars. We didn't have any great turmoil. I mean, there were some difficult times getting jobs at periods. Interest rates were high about 30 years ago. And but there's been this sort of like long string of relatively comfortable living, particularly if you're in the West. I mean, there are different, or the kind of Europe and America. There are different places that have had different struggles, but and how the turmoil of last year has put everything into a different context. And what do you do with that? Because there is this, because it's uncertain, it does engender this sense of fear. But just because you're fearful of something doesn't mean you can't face it, or you can't do something productive or constructive or new or whatever with it, right? There is a I don't know if it's an innate, I guess it is probably an innate, human thing, kind of like goes back to saber-toothed tigers. It's like, ooh, that's scary. Let me protect myself from that, right? That thing, that mammoth or saber-toothed tiger or tribe over there that has bigger sticks or spears or whatever, they can kill me or hurt me. So I've got to protect myself. So that's a kind of innate human, like genetic code, because obviously on some level we want to survive. And yet there is also this other side, and this is what I've exploring with, and this is what the podcast is about in a way, is that when we step into a different space of uncertainty, it's like almost planned or structured uncertainty. You were saying magic happens, right? It's like there's magic all around, and I'm not taking away from people that are been sick or died or anything like that. But that there is an opportunity to see anything from different perspectives.
And you asked me in the beginning of the before we jumped into the conversation, you asked me what was coming up for me, right? What was inside of me? What was effervescent inside of me? And I told you tune in. And the reason why tune in was what was coming from my heart was because, and it's so aligned with what we were just talking about. It's like there's uncertainty, but uncertainty is also opportunity, right? It's like adversity. Adversity, there's a few languages in the world which have similar words to opportunity and adversity, right? Or maybe even adversity doesn't exist, right? So I think that regardless of what happens around us, we are always able to tune into, right, to a specific, I would say emotion, not to call it vibration, because maybe some people don't resonate a lot with vibration, but I think that we're all energy. I totally believe we are energy, and we see each other because we are vibrating at this specific vibration, and quantum physicists and many other physicists can actually relate to what we're talking about, scientists, right? So I think that we still have the opportunity to tune into something different of what our senses might be telling us. We always have that opportunity. Then the question is, how do we do it? So if we see a lot of pain, right? I mean, as you said, regardless of what everybody stands up as far as many of the physical things happening around us, right? The freedom, the lockdowns, the masks, the vaccines, all these things, regardless, where do we put our attention? So where do we create those, what do we tune into so that we go back to the place where we would like to be? So the magic is that we really have the power of maybe using our imagination or using our memory to go back to those moments in our lives in which we really were thriving, in which we were completely in peace, or we were in a complete bliss, like super joyful moments. And we can always go there as humans. I always tell everybody the same, I always make the same metaphor, right? If we were our thoughts, we wouldn't be able to listen to our thoughts. You need someone to listen to your thoughts, right? So we are not our thoughts, right? So that sounds obvious, but some people don't think about this. So we have this chatter all the time. So we are listening to our chatter. We have become aware of our chatter. We have become aware of those things that concern us. Those we have become aware of so many things. We have become aware of the discomfort, of the fear, of the uncertainty, of those chemicals that run through us when we have that emotion, and not only aware, but also addictive, right? So it's automatic. Our body, our being, we have those thoughts, and then those thoughts immediately generate those chemicals inside of us, and it's difficult to get rid of those chemicals if we have fired those neuronal connections so fast and so often, right? So they have their wire, firing together all the time. Sorry, I'm talking to neuroscientifically now, but I think it's important.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on the same page with you. We are on the same vibration, or we've tuned in, because I have a very similar understanding and approach to things. And I really like what you just said. I'd never heard that expressed like that, but it makes so much sense to say, well, clearly we're not our thoughts because we can recognize our thoughts. And if you can see something that you're doing or whatever, then you're not that thing. And so that's a really beautiful way. I was talking to somebody over the weekend about this, that when the thought or the emotion, because it invariably can get so overwhelming that we can feel that we are our thoughts, or we feel that we are our emotions, our anger, our sadness, our confusion, our fear is so overwhelming that that is all there is. And yet we have had other experiences where we say, oh, okay, right, I'm feeling this sadness, but I'm able to do something about it, right? I'm able to see it for what it is, or take a little space from it. And I just had this moment, it's like almost, it's like that pulling back, right? If you can create just a micron, a millimeter of space between you and that thought, and maybe the thought or the emotion comes and it's overwhelming. Maybe it's overwhelming for a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month. I could probably think of some emotions that were pretty overwhelming for a decade or so, but I'm a slow learner. And whatever it is, if you can allow it or even imagine, I think that's what I wanted to pick up on as well, that because you spoke about imagination, and I've really been thinking about this lately, the power of imagination, because if you can imagine something, then it's possible. Or it's not impossible until you prove it's impossible. And
how can you possibly do that?
Well, exactly. Well, exactly. But so if you can imagine just an inkling, a tiny little sliver of space between you and your thought, then you've started somewhere. And then you can create more and more space and say, oh, I'm not this thought. And then maybe start to say, oh, this thought maybe comes from growing up in this particular environment with these parents or caregivers, with this, situation. And people have challenging situations. It's not to say that that's not true, but you're not your past unless that's what you choose to be.
And that's why silence is so important, right? I mean, to go to that place, right? To go to a place where you can disconnect or be independent from your thoughts or your concerns or your emotions that you don't really like, that you don't know, that you don't like, but you don't know what to do with them. Silence plays a key role. I remember, because we spoke about silence earlier, and remember, when I was younger, I knew a lot of people that the only way they could do something, even work, was with music on, and I couldn't understand it. And then more like later on in my life, I learned that some psychological studies have demonstrated that if you had some music on, it would be easier to concentrate or focus on what you were doing. And I was thinking, really? And it's funny how music allows me to get out of my concerns, thoughts. Music is actually, for me, it's the other way around in general, right? So, and let me give you an example. Just before our call today, I was concerned about something, and I said, no, I have to change the course of my day. And I didn't share this with you before. I took my car. I have a small convertible. I put my music. I love dance music. I put my earbuds. I jump into my car, and there I went to change my state, right? Because I wanted to really feel the air and the sun and the music, and boom, my state was completely different. And I was enjoying it, and I was reminded of those amazing times in which I was like dancing like mad and with no other concerns and enjoying it. And so it's I think that everybody finds their own ways, or we should try to find our own ways to get out of this chatter, concern, however you want to call it, that sometimes becomes a burden. I have a friend of mine who says, I've interviewed him for a show a few times. He always tells me that the reason why we have this chatter all the time is because we are part of the matrix, right? And the matrix, the matrix is the one that really takes care of we being very concerned and going back to those thoughts of limiting beliefs and those things that do not allow us to thrive and to be all day long, like enjoying life and being in a permanent state of bliss, right? Because, and for instance, setting up some goals and then not taking action and procrastinating. He calls all this the matrix, right? And I cannot find a better way to describe it, right? I mean, he worked in the national television station in Spain for 30 years. And so he was talking about the matrix also in many other senses, right? Because as you know, public television plays a key role in the way that population lives in general, right?
Absolutely.
So it's fascinating how becoming aware of things that we are not aware actually helps us be in a better place and be able to thrive or be able to be more in flow, right? And not stuck on those, again, because I have learned to identify those chemicals related to concern, connected to concern very easily, and they're painful because you acknowledge them. You acknowledge those chemicals, right? You are in pain, but most of the people cannot do anything about it. And that's why I understand that some people have to actually be on drugs to be able to cope with these difficult spots.
I think that one of the things that, it's like, how much space can you actually create for yourself in those moments, in the moment of concern or fear or whatever the thing is that feels overwhelming. Because even if you, because I think a lot of people intellectually can say, oh yes, I know, I understand that I'm not my thoughts, but they still think it, or they still embody the sense that they are their thoughts, and they identify with that thought as the most accurate representation of who they are, right? So as you were talking about the voice, right? The voice says, don't do this, you're crap, you're not good enough, you don't have the time, you don't know as much as so and so, let's stay back, let's be safe, whatever it is, right? All the kind of chatter that says, okay, I'm not going to go into an uncertain place. And you mentioned again silence, and I wanted to come back to that because it reminded me of an experience that I have had with meditation, and I really had a very challenging idea and relationship with meditation. There's a part of me that can, like, I have quite a tenacious attitude, so, which has a functional and a dysfunctional side. So when I have something to do, I can spend hours and hours and hours totally focused on it. And that sounds really good. And it can be good, right? When I have something to do, I will, work at it hard and get to it. However, I can also completely be blind to what else is going on, and I can use that as an excuse to say, well, I'm just going to focus on this one thing that I maybe feel like I have control over, and I'm not going to deal with the other big things that are challenging me. So anyway, it has this sort of functional and dysfunctional side, and I think with meditation, I really felt like I felt like I was going to force it. For me, like when I was learning or coming across meditation, and I was really forcing this sense of going into, like the Zen talk about, like, no mind, right? Where there's nothing, you're literally like in a blank space or state. And I really kind of forced myself to try to embody that. And I think I found the more I did it, the more challenging it was. Like I would get to it for a period, and then it would kind of all fall apart. And I would get very sort of angry with myself. And I remember, I mean, it was, years after I'd been doing meditation, that I listened to a lecture from somebody, or I don't even remember, maybe I read a book or something, who said, the purpose of meditation is not to go to some like blissful state where you never think again. I mean, if you can do that, great, congratulations. Like, but that is not the primary purpose of meditation. It actually goes to what you and I have been talking about, which is about creating at least that sliver of space. Because when you're in a meditative state, right? Okay, maybe there's some like, oh, it'd be nice to not have a thought. But thoughts come up. I don't know where. We have no idea where thoughts come from, right? I mean, we can get into the quantum and metaphysics of this, but I don't think anybody has shown where a thought actually comes from, right? So thoughts will come up, and as they come up, the opportunity, I think, for meditation, and whether you're doing meditation for 30 seconds or 30 minutes, right? I mean, people feel like, oh, I've got to do 20 minutes. And I always tell people, I'm like, well, try 2 minutes every 5 days or something. Like if you try 20 minutes on day 1, by day 2, you won't want to do any of it. Right. So start small and go from there. And, there are days when I feel like meditation has gone well, only because I've actually seen the thought come up, and I may be able to say, okay, there's a thought. I'm going to let that kind of, it's like a bubble from, I don't know, like what do they call it, like mineral water or whatever, like, with gas or something. It kind of like comes up and then it goes away, right? But there are other times where a thought will come up and I will just sink my teeth into it, and I'll go down a rabbit hole of thinking, well, this is the email I need to write, this is what I need to do, blah, 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 blah. And I'm 10 minutes into a plan on something, and I've actually even forgotten what the original thought was. I've just kind of gone down, like you say, like that chemical, like that something has triggered, and I'm in automatic down some path that I'm not even aware of.
Yes, it reminds me of one of the people I followed the most, and I'm a big fan of him, of his Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I couldn't agree more. Breaking the habit of being yourself. As you know, I'm the president of co-founder of a foundation. It's called Wisdom for Kids. And we go to Latin America to help underprivileged kids become entrepreneurs using their local resources. The reason why I mentioned this is because the workshops that we deliver to those kids have nothing to see with the, let's say, whiteboarding or blackboarding, how to become a businessman. No. It's all about energy. And we actually meditate with the kids. So we have the most powerful, moment of the workshops we give them is we deliver to them is the meditation. And we were really, let's say, uncomfortable before we started piloting the workshops, because we weren't sure if the kids maybe would be, quiet enough or, stand still enough to be able to meditate. Guess what? Kids are much more natural than us. Much more natural. So just giving very precise instructions, we are able to put the kids to meditate as if they had meditated forever. It's like it comes natural. I mean, we were shocked when we were doing it the first times, and everybody was like, wow. And the kids, and we would, well, as you know, you just mentioned it. You just said it. You explained it very well. Hey, do 2 minutes every 4 or 5 days. I mean, and then get used to it. And if you like it, you keep on doing it. If you don't like it, it's okay. You're not forced to do it. And maybe something else will work for you. But these kids, as soon as you put the music and you give them instructions, and then you start, it's a guided meditation that we do with them. We spend a lot of time just picking the right NLP affirmations. So everything is like really like elaborated. But kids, so the younger a human being is, that's the conclusion we have come to, the closer they are to meditating. What does that tell you? Well, and that tells us that as human beings, we are not only prone, but we are natural to meditate. The problem is, the thing is, as we grow up, our education, our parents, the formal education, the schools, the teachers, the relatives, the friends, you name it, our churches, whatever, everything that is actually helping us become adults, also is helping us, quote unquote, to get out of our, innate condition of meditating and being comfortable with the silence, with the breathing, with the no place, if that exists, no time, no place, nothing. So it's fascinating how, as humans, as human beings, we are so much ready to meditate when we are kids.
And I think one of the things about, because also I'm just sort of thinking about my own experience and what you're speaking about, and listening to what you speak about with the kids, which is an amazing story. And I wanted to hear about this program that you started, right? Because it's like, first of all, you started it, I think, as a sort of way to give back, right, to children. So it's like, it's beautiful fellowship or charity to bring that something to underprivileged kids in different parts of the world. But the thing you spoke about, right, like how kids are kind of closer naturally to this sense of meditation. And what I was thinking about as you were speaking was that in reality, kids are actually they're in the present. And I think that's what our socialization, which, like it just is, right? I think it's part of becoming human, right? We grow up, we mature, we go through, childhood, adolescence, into early adulthood, and, for us into middle age, and eventually onto, hopefully onto elder age. And that there's part of that process, like you say, the education, the socialization from family and school and friends and neighbors, and it puts all these things on kind of like how we are supposed to be. And so as we have so much that's kind of put on to us, we have to go through a learning. Oh, okay, I've got to act like this. Oh, I've got to do this, like I've got to look to the right when the cars are coming, or I've got to look to the left when the cars are coming, depending on which country you're in. I've got to do different things to learn. And some of that's very, very useful and practical. But it does get us away from just being with something, right? Because, I remember sort of like adolescence and teenage years, right? Where it's like, well, you've got to do this to fit in. Or I was actually quite rebellious. So I was like, well, I've got to do this other thing specifically not to fit in, right? But then you're still following something, some prototype. And all of that, I think it's kind of well understood. And Joe Dispenza talks about this, right? It takes you out of now, right? Because you either are thinking about something that happened in the past, you're either trying to get back to that, or you're regretting what happened and trying to fix that, or you are in the future looking forward to something beautiful or worrying about something that you fear is going to happen. And all of that takes us out of right here, right now, which I think is what the silence we talked about really, really does, whether you call it meditation or call it something else, but it is an opportunity to be here and now, whatever that is. And children, I think, that's where they are, right? That's what they do. I saw I read a report recently. It was in some psychology journal or magazine, and it said that they'd done tests on children. All these different tests, like spatial awareness, awareness of language, and all these different aspects of what it means to be competent in something, and in fact to be at what they call the genius level. And what they found was that something like 90 or 95% of children under the age of 4 measured on the genius level in, like, I don't know, like 9 out of 10 categories or something like that, right? Which feels like, well, that seems quite remarkable. Like, shouldn't there be some bell curve where, it's like there's a portion that doesn't and that does, and maybe there was kind of like a better distribution, but essentially what they were saying was that 95% of kids under the age of 4 were on the genius level of all these different categories. And by the time children get to the age of sort of 17, 18, or 20, maybe, or whatever it was, but early adulthood, late childhood, that number was down to something like 5 or 10%. And the idea was that nothing had happened. Nothing. It's not like these children had lost something. It's that, or maybe I guess they had, but that the system that we have naturally takes people out of that. Anyway, that's a long-winded way to get about what you were speaking about, which is that innate power of children to inhabit this sort of awe and wonder of just being with something.
I mean, I wish I'm not surprised. I wish I could read the entire report or study. I'm obviously not surprised, and it's true. I mean, all of us that have kids or have had kids, we have experienced that, that being in the present moment, which makes our kids or the children so magical, right? So incredibly unique. And I have 3 kids. The two young ones are still in their school age, and one of my challenges is trying to keep the flame, of it doesn't matter what's going to happen next. We just enjoy where we are. For instance, we're at home over the weekend, and I suddenly say, "Hey, let's go do something. Let's get out of the house and do something." One of the main challenges I have is, but where? Why? What? Why for? Why? Why should we go? What are we going to do? Come on, that's going to be boring, Daddy. Obviously, when we go anywhere and we do anything, then it's a different story because they're already there, they are present, they're enjoying. But it's true. I think that we as a society, we don't do a good job. And I mean, obviously, with what has happened in the world for the last 12 months, I think that when I hear these kind of stories, Taylor, the first thing I think is how can I change that? What can I do to change that? What can I do so that we become much more aware of what has to be done? Because just knowing it's obviously it's not enough. I want my kids to be, genius, but not genius in the sense, that, they're able to do more calculations mentally. No. Like genius in the sense that they're able to tap into their uniqueness and their power, their power within, as if they were, for the rest of their lives. Imagine that we could use our power consistently. So maybe the system is what makes us go from 90 plus to a 4% or 5%. So why should the system be like this, right? And what's the definition of fitting in? I agree with you. Of my 3 kids, my oldest one actually didn't fit in at all. So I've been at that side myself as a dad. When I was a kid, I was obedient, and I would be the best kid, the most shy. I would do anything, blah blah blah. But obviously, my oldest kid was the other way around, and obviously that was a great lesson for me and a great experience. Like, I took it as an experience. Obviously, great experience, and still to this day, is a very fascinating experience because I am a very positive guy. But it's learning a lesson. It's learning an experience going to help me for the future. And let me tell you an anecdote that is related to our genius. I am a very unconventional guy. So to find my clients, very often I do unconventional stuff, not weird stuff, not dishonest, illegal stuff, but just unconventional. One of the things I do is sometimes, I go and look for job offers So there I see that the company has a specific need. So I take the job offers as a symptom, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I went even one step further. I applied for a job. Okay. I applied for a job. All right. So, and then I said, oh, well, that's a great job. I mean, I love it. Let's do it. Let's apply for it. And I go there. It wasn't here in the US. It was in Europe. And I go there, start the process, and everything was automated. I said, wow, that's amazing. I mean, like everything, like the first step is this, and then the second and the third. I was on the third step, and you have to go through this psychotechnical test. Mm-hmm. I start doing it, and I go, wow. I remember when I was in elementary school, okay, so put this in perspective, right? Like 30, 40 years ago, mm-hmm. I was doing the exact same test. Wow, that's great, you know, and I start doing it. I mean, I remember when I took the first psychological test when I was a kid, in which mm-hmm. they were grading my IQ when mm-hmm. I was a kid. And, you know, I graded so high and blah, 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 whatever. I mean, that never defined me. I mean, it was good. It was nice to have, nice to see it, whatever. Mm. So I took it again after 40 years, literally. And guess what? After a few, and it was a timed exercise. And there were like 50 or 60 questions. I only did probably like 20 or 30. I don't know how many. And it was actually, I was continuously distracted because I was with the family, but I was still taking it, right? Mm-hmm. After I finished the test, after 60 seconds, I get an email. You failed miserably. Listen. You failed miserably, and we only hire the smartest people in the market. I mean, literally, we only hire. I wish I could go back, you know, that wasn't an email. That wasn't the website that is showing to me. That was, I mean, we only hire the smartest people in the planet. And I started thinking, okay, so the same test that they put me through 40 years ago is still the same test, which is defining who's going to be successful for a worldwide vice president of sales leadership position in a multinational company. Okay, so picture this. Again, the same test I took 40 years ago is still the #1 test for filling up a position that's probably going to be, I don't know, $700,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever the salary was. But this is what we are being conditioned still consistently to date. And as you know, because you're open to, you know, unconventional knowledge, it has been proven that the success on a specific position, IQ plays a role, but there's so many, you know, ways to define, describe intelligence, right? So many that define probably the success, or even estimate or predict the success that you can have as an executive. Like social skills, for instance, right? I mean, social skills obviously play a key role in order to be able to define partnerships and become trustworthy with your client. I mean, many other things, right? But anyway, again, obviously my self-esteem wasn't damaged, right? But anyway, actually the recruiting company I wasn't doing this for the final client. It was a recruiting company, and this recruiting company has like 90% of the offers of this market in this country. So if you want to have a job in that country, you either get hired by this company who dominates the market completely, or or it's impossible, or you will never be hired in that country. So can you imagine the cookie cutter that company represents in that country? The cookie cutter. Can you imagine how we are all painted the same? We are all like, it's amazing. That's why what you and I are talking today is so important. Yeah, it's not going outside; it's going inside. Going inside.
Yeah, and I think what I want to bring up, I mean, you've spoken about a lot, and I want to kind of bring another element into this, because, like, as you said, you know, this is how you go out and find clients, right? So, I mean, people may read it in the show notes, and if they're watching the video, they can see who you are. But I mean, you know, you go by the name CEO Confidant, and you've worked with something like, I don't know, like 1,500 CEOs over the course of your career. I mean, you're not somebody, you know, like, just to be clear, you're not somebody who's just sitting in your mom's basement, like filling out applications for executive VP of sales just because you think, oh, well, maybe I can get that job. It'd be really nice to get 700,000 euros a year or whatever it is. And of course it would, but it's because you are doing that as a way to research and potentially help a particular organization. So, you know, I want to just put that in context because hearing the story otherwise, people be like, well, why is the guy applying for a job as a VP of sales? And maybe he is stupid and shouldn't get the job. And it's because the point is, it's not about that specific job. It's about the process. And I think, you know, that is a really interesting example, because the world we live in, as we've been discussing, and, you know, it's like, not to point fingers at anybody. It's the system, or it's not even like, it's just where we are, right? But is it serving? Is it serving you? Is it serving me? Is it serving society? Is it serving your parents? Is it serving your children? Is it serving your neighbor? Is it serving your heart? You know, what is the world we live in? And not to think, well, we're just going to go, you know, have a revolution and burn everything down and start over again, because you have to make changes like one at a time, right? We deal with individuals. There's this kind of concept. It's like, well, let's go change this corporation. But a corporation is just a collection of individuals, right? And when you're going to speak to somebody, the CEO or the CFO or whatever, you know, somebody, an executive who has a significant number of resources at his or her disposal, what's, you know, like, now I kind of want to move into like what that process is like for you, and also kind of how you've come to that. Because, you know, to work with 1,500 CEOs in the span of a career is an impressive accomplishment, and it obviously puts you in a position that, you know, some people would look at that and think like, or might think that, you know, you're just kind of telling people what to do, and I don't get the impression that that's how you act. So I'm curious. I mean,
thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no. First of all, thank you for making some space for context, right? So people can understand better why I chose the example I chose before, besides the fact that I'm a pretty disruptive guy. So I try to go through down pathways that people typically wouldn't go. That's one thing. But and to be honest, also obviously, I'm not that unique. I mean, so I was blessed enough with having responsibilities and positions in companies in which I have to actually always talk to the top of my clients' organizations to close deals. Okay, so as anybody else, that was a skill, right? So my first ever sales job, I had to actually call high in those accounts. And actually I had to generate leads and appointments for my field reps. That was my first ever position, was an inside sales rep, right? So that's how I became comfortable. First of all, calling to high-level executives, and eventually being myself with my sales team or with my sales partners, going and closing those deals in those companies. So I just was blessed with having an entire organization and partnership, programs and partnership organizations, partner organizations. So I could consistently use this way of selling to corporations that forced me to go to C-level executives. Okay, so again, if you do that over time, often enough, you just become acquainted with it. You just you're used to it. Okay, so, and I'm sure there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have done the same kind of process, sales process, and they have been able to sell for other organizations. So that's how I ended up helping 1,500 CEOs. And actually, I have to tell you, I stopped counting because I said, well, that's, it doesn't make sense to keep on counting. I just made a list of clients and I said, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of companies. That's number one. And number two, to your point, exactly. It's not about me telling them what to do. Oh my God, of course not. It's all about listening to them. It's all about, and that's something I liked a lot from the first time I got engaged with Tony Robbins' world, which is the quality of your life is the quality of your questions. And that's why I love so much to coach people. It's about asking questions. and that's why also as parents we tend to fail miserably also with our kids. It's because we are in the telling mode as opposed to the asking and trying to understand mode. Again, if we really try to understand people and we try to ask questions, because the only way to try to understand people that I know of is to ask questions, how can we possibly then try to help them? So, there's no big difference between a CEO and someone else in the world. It's just, people like you and I, they have different challenges. They still have to go to a board and they have to present their quarterly meetings. They have to present their results, and sometimes they fail. And sometimes they feel like going to the principal's office, you know what I mean? And sometimes they feel, wow, we made it, and our top line is great this quarter, or our profitability went up 2 percentual, digits, or whatever it is, So I think that, in order to help people, you have to listen. You have to genuinely make the point of listening to them, ask them, make sure that you know where they are, so that you are able to take them somewhere, or you are able to suggest them something that they could try to change where they are. We all have flaws, this chatter that we all hear, this chatter, these questions, this concern, these chemicals that we were talking about, we all have them regardless of our position. You can be the CEO of a $3 billion corporation, or the CEO of a $30,000 startup. It doesn't matter really. We all need help. I think it's good. I always suggest everybody to have a counselor, mentor, a coach, because you just don't know what you don't know. And we are so unique. Your life, Taylor, is unique, and there's people out there that probably only after listening to you they will be able to take action and do something. There will always be people that are waiting for you to serve them. Always, by definition, always. So even though, let's say you and I, we started the same career, we went through the same similar industries, even the same company, even the similar positions in similar areas in the world, blah, 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 you name it. Still, your experience is going to be your experience. My experience is going to be my experience. Both are going to be unique. And you are going to be able to serve today people in a different way, and you will be able to speak and ask these people in a different way compared to what I would do it.
And what did I want to say? The sense that everybody's dealing with similar issues. It can be, I think, it can be very easy or tempting, or I don't know, maybe that's it, that when we look outside of ourselves, right, we can look at, whether it's somebody like a like a prominent sports figure, a Michael Jordan, or I don't know, like a Lionel Messi, right, and you see this level of professionalism and capacity of something, or look at like some great singer, like or a musician, or actor, or whatever, poet, or whatever it is, or a CEO. And because of the way that we're so removed from that, right? Because we only get the thin slice, right? You see you hear the album from whoever, the great musician, Prince or something, right? And you see LeBron James in the NBA finals, and you see somebody and think, wow, I could never do that. And you're not aware of what goes on. We're starting to see a little bit more. I think people are sharing much more, even at that level. They're sharing, some people are definitely sharing their humanness. And I think as well, like, in the CEO, because we're talking about business, where, I look at my sort of, solopreneur business and think, gosh, like these people run these 3 million, 30 million, $3 billion businesses. It's not that I necessarily aspire to that specifically, but I can get caught up thinking, oh, they must be so much better, or blah, 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 whatever it is. And I think what's really, nice, and thanks for bringing it here as well about the podcast, because it is very much a specific intention of this show, which, to bring people on that, ordinary people, extraordinary people who have done amazing things, but also who have done quite ordinary things and are living their own adventure, right? Because like as you were saying, everybody has this unique path, and we are called to something. I really truly believe that we are called in our hearts to do something, to bring something out in the world. And I spent, most of my life up until now avoiding that, because I was scared. I was scared of bringing something out into the world. I was scared of sharing things. And over the, last several years, and however long it's been, I've opened up to a point where I say, okay, I'm starting to get a glimpse of what I really truly want to bring out into the world, and now I feel like I'm just getting started, right? And one of the things, with this show is to bring people on who, are very open about, like, people can do amazing things, but they're still human. Everybody who's on this path is still a human being. So whether you're Elon Musk or LeBron James or Alfred Einstein or whomever, right? Sorry, Albert, Alfred. But anyway, maybe his cousin Alfred was a great painter. I don't know. But we have an opportunity. We are called to do something great. There is a call to adventure. That is the hero's journey. And it is not, to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, this sense of fear and uncertainty. The path to bring our heart out into the world, the path to to success, or to even personal fulfillment, is not a certain one. It's not necessarily an easy one, and it's not necessarily a safe one in some ways, but it is, in my experience and many people I speak to, the most fulfilling. And once you start on it, that you cannot but go forward with it, because you start to realize that the things that you were doing in the past were often somebody else's decisions, somebody else's idea of what success or fulfillment, or whatever it is.
And analyzing maybe, obviously, you see, extremely successful people in the world, right? When you're dealing with executives, high level executives, you obviously see highly successful people, although success is obviously a relative term as well. But if I had to mention maybe one quality or something I've seen consistently, I would say it's their ability to build upon uncertainty. So they create certainty upon uncertainty.
I see. Yeah.
So, and again, I go back, I love talking in terms of energy. So it's as if, we are one of those bumper cars, right? When you go to one of these, amusement parks, and you start bumping everywhere, but eventually there's, you see that spot, and then you go that spot, regardless of where your energy is going to bump on the sides, right? You see that spot, and you say, okay, I don't know exactly what's going to take me, but I want to go that path. When I was don't think that I built this willingly. I had to leave corporate America to be able to realize what I had done. Honestly, had you asked me when I left corporate America, right at the very same moment when I did that, if I was aware of this, no way. Taylor, no way. And I had great testimonials, but no, I wasn't aware of how many amazing things I had done. I'm able to speak 5 languages still. So what? So what? So it takes some time to realize what you have done. Because when you are in the midst of doing it, of creating it, very often you don't know you are creating it until maybe something happens outside you that makes you be aware. Oh my God, this is valuable. This can be valuable for me to put it to serve other people. So just to give you my personal journey, my adventure, Taylor, let me share you my adventure. So I left corporate America, and it took to me over a year to decide what path to take. And before I was able to actually realize and be aware of everything I had done, I had this terrible imposter syndrome, you know? And then I realized, oh my God, all those things I did, all those extra days, extra trips, extra training courses to my Salesforce, extra reports I wrote, extra offers I made to my clients, extra meetings I took with my partners, all those extra things, suddenly they made me who I am. But I didn't know, honestly, I wasn't aware of everything I had done. I wasn't, although I didn't change the reality. It's the reality. The reality is there, you know, it's still there. So even today, when I read the testimonials from former clients or former, you know, partners of mine, I read their testimonials. I said, wow, yeah, now that I read it, wow, yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for writing that for me, because you are right, but I was doing it, and for me, it was normal. That's why I said, making certain places where you've seen uncertainty. And, you know, here, as you know, here in America, you know, fake it until you make it, right? It's so true, Taylor. It's so true. Honestly, it's so true. I've seen that so many times with my clients, so many times. When you fake it until you make it, it's so true. It's like you are in tune with a completely different, you know, a completely different being of who you are right now.
Yeah, I think the thing, because sometimes people feel like it's an interesting concept, right? I think certainly I sometimes feel when I hear that it's like, well, you're being dishonest, you're being manipulative, you're not being truthful. But I think, I mean, it sounds good just because it rhymes. I mean, frankly, and it has this sort of bluster. It has very, you know, has very good American bluster to it. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll just, you know, pretend to be something, and then it'll happen. And it does go to, I think, what we were talking about earlier, is this idea of imagination, because the great creators, and I mean in all respects, whether it's an artistic creation, whether it's an entrepreneurial creation, whether it's an engineering creation, they have imagined something that is out there. It is somewhere in the future. It is not certain, and yet they are locked into it, 100%. Right? They're locked into it, and I think this is, you know, like Joe Dispenza talks about this. You actually bring that into, because it exists. If it exists in the quantum field, if it exists in your imagination, if you can actually imagine something, then it's possible. So, until you can prove that it's impossible, and good luck with that. And so those people, it's just like, how much are you in that, the emotion, right? What you were saying, like, or vibration, whatever it is, how much are you in the emotion of that thing that you are choosing? And, you know, I think it's one of the reasons, like, why some people, they see people who do things for whatever it is, and it can look like it's quite heartless, or, you know, it's so you know, clean and cut and dry, but it's just focus, and you know, everybody has to determine whether the thing they're focused on is a true expression of their heart, right? I can't determine that for somebody. I mean, I work with clients and help them see that, or help them acknowledge that for themselves. But ultimately, it's up for each individual, for you, for me, for anybody, to determine what is true for that person. So that's the one thing. And the other thing I was thinking about from your story, and thanks for sharing your story, because I can recognize a lot of that in several stages. I mean, I've gone through a number of different careers where I mean, again, in sort of my rebellious sort of bent, I kind of get to a point in something where I'm relatively successful, and then want to burn it all down, which I've done, much to my detriment, a few times. But I also like to rebuild from the ashes. And there is a lot of that, and I really appreciate what you're saying, because when I look at the times, like when I left corporate, I left corporate for the last time now, about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, to get into like leading personal development for individuals, for organizations. And it was incredibly uncertain, but I knew what I wanted. Now I'm still stumbling through that. But that's fine. I'm okay with that, because I do know, and I'm, to gain momentum, because the first year I had no idea what I was doing, and I quote unquote failed miserably, or I just bumped into walls and was like, well, that's not it. But it reminds me, as well, as you were speaking, because I made a massive transition about 15 odd years ago. I was working as a corporate lawyer, and I didn't want to stay doing that. So I left on my own accord. I didn't know what I was going to do. I left. It took me, about a year and a half, and divorce and changing countries and all sorts of other things, to come to a new opportunity, which was moving into large scale renewable energy. I was developing offshore wind farms, which was an amazing job. I mean, I'm incredibly blessed for it, learned so much. And I just knew that that's what I was going to do. At some point, when the opportunity came, when somebody called me and said, oh, you've got this particular job, I was 100% focused on that job. And the way that, because I just want to bring something around that you were talking about. The reason I'm talking about this is because, like, it took me about 6 months to get this particular job. Because of the way HR worked with this company, they actually had one job, they split it into two, then they put it back to one, and I went through this different set of interviews. It was quite comical in a way, but stressful at the time. But when I had to transition from being a corporate lawyer, which, like, I knew it was a good position, and I knew I was smart for it, but I didn't actually know what I knew. I had no idea what I actually had, because I thought I was just a lawyer. And to transition into something that was, like renewable energy, like a totally different industry, development, like kind of being, we were kind of an entrepreneurial sort of startup environment. To transition into that, I had to go through a lot of uncertainty, and I had to really think about how my skills as lawyer, or just my skills as X, applied to Y, which was completely different. And the reason I'm sort of belaboring this is because what I found was that the way I was able to do that, and the way I was able to transition from corporate 3.5 years ago into what I do now, was through moments of silence. Because there was uncertainty, and a certain path opened up, but it was because I was able to sit with uncertainty, and it can be very unpleasant, but I knew there was something. And it's like I knew there was something for me. And when I was able to sit with that, silence, and allow that truth to start to emerge, then it's like the clarity of what was certain, right? That path of the bumper car opened up, and I was like, okay, now because I'm being hit by at all sides for months at a time. Bumper cars are hitting me all over the place. I'm not going anywhere. And then there's a moment, boom. Oh, okay, now I know where I want to go.
Bang on, Taylor.
Yeah. I don't know if that's encouraging for anybody else, anybody listening, but it's that's why it's called the adventure. That's why this is called the adventure of self, right? It is an adventure.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity to live our lives as an adventure. And and if and I use adventure because I really like mythology. I really appreciate myth. A lot of what I do in my personal life and in my professional life, bring the concept of myth in because I love it. It's like I actually, one of the things that comes from developing your own path is you start to decide exactly what it is you want it to be. I don't know if anybody else enjoys it. I don't know if it's going to be quote unquote successful, but I have a good time, and some people seem to relate to it, so that's good enough for me. And it's because it allows me to bring in what's important to me. And if I go back to who I was at 5 and 7 or whatever years old, I loved the concept of adventure. I read about mythology. I read about adventure. I, played with other kids and did adventurous things. I wasn't particularly like physical and like doing kind of crazy things. I was just adventurous in a much more sort of imaginative way. And so I bring that into everything I do. And I know other people, right, that in their particular path, they do bring in what is important from their past, from their heart, from whatever, what it is that's, that unique sense about what it is you want to bring out into the world.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's unique. By definition, that's unique. So there will always be people that only you can, help, and only with you they will resonate with. So, and thank you, by the way, for sharing your story, because also, and for clarifying the, fake it until you make it, in the sense that you put yourself in the boots. I remember when I was in middle school, the only part of history I really liked was the mythology. I mean, in Barcelona, obviously in Spain, we were studying Latin and Greek and all these amazing stories, fictional stories of the big authors in the early ages of history, right, of human history, with these amazing stories, right? And so many things afterwards have been based on those mythical stories. And again, as you only need like a thread, right? You only need a thread, and then you pull it, and then there's this whole amazing story behind it. And if you resonate with it, and that helps you, move the needle and be passionate about, and so it is, so be it. And because again, it's hard to stop being humans. It's hard to break the habit of being ourselves. It's hard. That's why when we find this, as I said before, this certainty in the uncertainty, or we find those examples that excite us to take another route and to help other people that way, let's make it. And regardless of my bio, what is really important right now, it's not my past. What is really important is what I do with my time right now. What is really important is the conversation I'm having with you. And if the people listening to us are going to be maybe inspired, and they're going to be maybe taking action, right? Yeah. So if we just change the life of one person today, Taylor, that will be an amazing thing to say. If just one person changes, their life today, because something that we said, some message, some concept resonated like to the bone, like really, inside of them. Wonderful. It's worth our time. And Absolutely. The future, right? And the future. I mean, what am I going to do with all my past? Okay, it's there, it's done, it's past. I have some friends, right? I have a lot of people all over the world. It's okay. So the question is, how do I use them? And something else that maybe we haven't really gone really deep into, but is as public figures, like let's say we are public figures just because we have a microphone and we're able to express to help others be, or we help others, we are the conduits of others' greatness, is that what is our role today? So how can we make this world a better place from where we are? I always think about the quality of the questions. What can we do? Everybody, you, the people who are listening to us today, myself, what can we do right now today in order to make this world a better place? What can we do? Do we have a responsibility or not? Do we want to take that on board? Do we want to use our uniqueness? Do we want to use our talents, our gifts? And how can we use those to help other people that maybe they still haven't been able to live their adventures, but very deep inside of them? And you mentioned it, very like you almost use the same words. Inside of all of us, we have this adventure that we know we want to live, right? So let's say I divorce again. Let's say I lose my family in an accident. Let's say whatever. If you had to start your life again, or you had to restart it, or you had to reset it, what would you do? Right? So you help people do that. Wow. So to everybody listening to us today, what kind of questions are you asking yourself? And are they getting you closer to your adventures? To genuine and authentic self or not? Ask yourself this question, please.
Yeah, and I think that what comes to me to say is to sit in the silence of that.
Awesome. Yeah, of course.
Because so quickly you think you have to answer that immediately. Oh, well, let me ask that question. No, or I know what the answer is. Sit in the silence of that and let that be an opportunity for inquiry, an opportunity for the adventure to emerge.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Angel, I think we have covered some amazing ground today. I had no idea what we were going to do. I knew it was going to be exciting. I don't think I got to half of the things I thought we were going to talk about, but I really think we've covered enough for today. I really am grateful. Thank you for your time, and would love to have you back on the show at some point.
You tell me. I think it's yeah, obviously I've enjoyed tremendously our conversation. The same as you, I didn't know what we were going to talk about, but I think that probably if we talk 5 times in our lives, every time we're going to talk about something different, and it's okay. Yeah. It's okay, because that's what we have to talk about. And it's probably because right now we are in a specific place where we have to talk about this. And in 1 week or in 1 month, we'll be on a different place and we will talk about maybe a different thing, right? So yeah, I've super enjoyed this this conversation with you, Taylor. Thank you for the opportunity, obviously. So I will be extremely blessed to be with you any other time.
Thank you, Angel. And thank you to everyone for listening to the speech and the silences.